What's up, everyone? So, what's happening? Saw a lot of you on the forum. I just went and put my picture up there, updated all my links, put my Twitter in there, put my Facebook, put everything. So tonight we can adjourn over to the chat there afterwards. Aaron put the chat where you can do the live chat there, which is really brilliant. So that's going to be a great forum. What's the quote of the day? So I just put a comment on a video, on my new video. This guy Scott wrote that I took a very simple approach to mixing the drums in my drum video. He said, "You're able to improve on what was there without losing the overall feel the original tracks had. Well done, thanks for sharing." And I said, "Thanks, Scott. The goal is to try to improve by doing no harm." That's, you want to retain the spirit of the performance and improve on the sonics if you can. So that was a thing that a friend of mine was mixing that he asked me for my help on, and I said, "Great, I'll make a video on it." He got the recording to mix. It was one of a bunch of tracks, no room mics, only overheads, totally dead toms, really bad sounding snare, no hi-hat mic. So when you have a hi-hat mic and the snare is way too loud in the in the overheads, you got problems because it's difficult. There's a couple approaches you can take with it when you're trying to fix. That's why I call it the drum rescue, and this happens a lot because I've had to fix. People send stuff to me to mix, and it's oh yeah, it sounds like being hit with a wet sock. That's how the snare drum sounded. It's like the snare from Speed of Sound by Coldplay. It's the worst snare sound of all time, like a wet sock. It was recorded with decent mics. The kick drum sounded good. The snare, it just it was there was a lot of technical issues. The toms were not badly recorded. But they were just totally dead. This is somebody that doesn't know how to tune their toms. Somebody that I think a lot of the tendency with drum tuning is that with people that don't know, typically drummers, that they if there's any type of a weird ring to them, they just keep deadening them until it goes away, and then you just get that lifeless sound that they probably weren't going after. It's one thing to try and get a sound where you make it sound retro and it sounds like like it's the 70s or the late 60s, but that's definitely not what they were going for. So your only choice for your hi-hat is in your overhead, so you have to deal with those. There's a couple ways you can take out all the low end and use them as cymbal mics, but then you start getting you start getting some thinness in the hi-hats, I think. Welcome everyone. See how people are joining here. Anyway, so that's creating ambience. The only way to do it if you're in a dead room is by faking it or using it's not really faking it, but using ambience of a reverb or a series of delays. There's also a way that you can put distortion on and use that as a way to create ambience. And mixers that I like Chad Blake, that engineered a lot of the Peter Gabriel, worked for Peter Gabriel for years, and he did the Brothers record, the Black Keys record. He mixed that, which is a really phenomenal sounding record. And he mixed the record for me, as I'd said in the video. And I told the story last week, I think, but he said that the tracks when he got them only had it was about 10 tracks of all done on analog drums. All the drum heads were these the hydraulic or the ones with the oil in between the black heads that are totally dead. There's no ambience at all to the drums, and so he um, he just started adding samples and distortion. A lot of people think Chad Blake, they don't think of samples, but when you listen to the low end on that record, that Black Keys record, it's amazing. The low end of the kick drum, really, really huge. And there's some other in my Chad Blake video. I played some other records that he mixed, like Los Lobos. Um, there's some really good stuff I think in that video, and it's all based on stuff that Chad told me that he did, and I talked to him pretty much every day for a month. He used that MC4000 limiter on the multiband limiter on the mix bus, and that's it's really interesting. You can really shape the mix. You need to put these things on though when you're starting your mix and you mix through them. So typically, any of the mixers, whether you're Andy Wallace or Tom Lord-Alge or Chris Lord-Alge or Jack Joseph Puig or whoever you are, you're going to start your mix with a mix bus compressor on. Chris Lord-Alge uses a Focusrite Red compressor, Focusrite 3 Red compressor. It's interesting because he said that he would put it on first because he wouldn't want any spikes, that would make you go deaf. Sometimes you turn up the speakers if you're in a control room, and it hits you like that. You really damage your hearing with that. So what a lot of the guys will do is they will go to the loudest part in the song, and they'll set their compression level there. If you start with your mix bus compressor and you start at the beginning of the song when you typically have very low program volume, and you're mixing through your mix bus compressor, by the time you hit the end of the bridge, your loudest part in the song or the final chorus, your mix is already you've already screwed up your whole gain structure. And then you have to kind of then you end up starting over. So what you should do is you should always go and look for the loudest part, the most dense part musically in a song when you're mixing, and start your mix there and find out your levels that you're going to hit your bus compression with. And then you kind of mix around it there. That way you've got enough headroom in your and you have enough. Fast or slow attack, if you're using an SSL style compressor, 1 millisecond, it really depends. The slower the attack, the more transient gets through. Typically on the Focusrite Red has an auto release. The G Plus G Series SSL compressor has an auto release. It's kind of it's based on the timing of the material that's coming in. So those are things that you really need to keep in mind. All bus compressors work differently. A Neve 33609 is a completely different kind of compressor that has compression and limiting on it. So it's hard to generalize. You have to talk about each specific bus compressor. If you're trying to go for a retro sound or using a Fairlight 670, that doesn't have your standard input and output or attack and release settings. They all take a different. They all require different finessing. Parallel compression on the mix bus. Most people do not use parallel compression on the mix bus. So most of the pros that you see do not do that. Now you can do it. You can do it but typically use things like parallel compression on your subs, like drum subs. In the old days, you'd have a copy of the track and you'd do that, or you'd bring them into a stereo fader, and then you would affect that, and then you'd send it to a one of the subgroups. If you're on an SSL, you'd have 8 subgroups, and so nowadays you can use parallel compression because all the plug-in compressors have a mix had a mix setting on it. How long did it take me to film and edit that video? Is exactly as long as the video was. The video was a little bit longer. I just cut out some of the stuff where I was, trying to find plugins on it. It took me probably about probably 40 minutes to do it altogether, because I tried a new thing with the box in the corner where I'm talking through the mic. It took longer to set up. Rhett helped me set up for the video. It took longer, so what we had to do, I went in the control room, and I had to run the Pro Tools out into this computer and record it. And then I use the SM7 to talk through, which obviously it has incredible rejection, and it's super clear. And I might start doing that for my audio. The only thing is, I don't like it being right in front of my face. That's the only thing with an SM7. It's got great rejection. Most YouTubers that you see, when they use it, will have a condenser mic that's a little bit further away, so their face isn't covered. That's the one thing that you think of when you're doing video at the same time. It's interesting because my friend Amy Nolte, she started doing videos using a microphone, and now she's doing it with more of a side view where it's not blocking her face. But I think it's not great to you shouldn't block your face when you're doing it. What's up, Tom? Blue shirt. I have the blue shirt on in honor of my first video I ever did, where I wore a blue shirt. Not this particular one, but this color. And this is in honor of the forum, which is similar to this color blue that I like. Scott asks, what are my thoughts on services like Taxi? I don't really have a... I don't want to say that Taxi's a scam, but I don't want to say it's a scam, but I don't know anyone that's gotten anything placed from it. I'm sure there are some people, but typically what happens with these things, honestly, I'm not going to say it. I don't know the people involved, but typically you go and you pay a fee. So people like that will have people that are, let's say, they'll have connections in some particular TV shows or something like that, just some nothing kind of things, and they'll have deals where they'll say, hey, if you put in a couple songs from a couple people, every 6 months or whatever, we'll give you this, a payout from it. So I don't believe that anybody is making their career from doing these things, and their whole profit model is on subscription. Basically, people paying a yearly fee in hopes. Everybody hopes to do something and be successful with this stuff. I mean, that's really ultimately what you prey on, and that's kind of why the production model of making a living hasn't made sense for the last 7 or 8 years, because excuse me, because when I first started, people had hopes of getting record deals because people actually did get record deals. That's I could probably name 5 bands off the top of my head. I told you I had 25 bands get signed. If I had to think of the names of the bands, I could think of some of them. Um, but I did one band for Atlantic. I did their demos. They got signed. 3-piece band. I can see them. They were reggae. They were they were reggae. What were they called? GL, my assistant, he could tell you all these bands' names. Um, there was a band from Charleston called The Working Title. They got signed to Universal. Charlie Mars, has a record that I loved that I did, got signed to V2 Records. That was Richard Branson's second label after Virgin. So Kinch, you had a bad experience with Taxi. When you asked for your money back, they blamed you for not getting your music placed. There you go. The guy raised his voice to you. Oh man. Well, there you go. I mean, I have friends that have used Taxi, and I always bust on them. So how many placements did you get this year? But it's kind of like the Perfect Pitch. It's like what's his name there? The guy that sells Perfect Pitch. I won't say his name. You guys can say his name. You know who he is. He's been selling it forever. Yet he never has a video of anyone that's ever developed it. There's just scamming people. Yes, thank you, Kinch. I didn't say it. I didn't say it. You wrote it. There we go. That's how I stay out of trouble. That's just a complete scam. That guy's living on an island somewhere because he faked people into believing that he could develop Perfect Pitch. I'm sure he became rich off that. It's as scams go. It was a good one. He just speaks and speaks and says nothing. Yeah, exactly. So, anyways, those are things you got to be careful of. People that would come not just to work with me, but to work with most producers would come with the hopes that they would be one of the bands that would make it. George said there's a sucker born every minute. That's true. Now, there are bands that did get signed and did go on to make it. The band Shinedown that I worked with, they were unsigned, or they were signed, but I did that first record, and they went on and sold almost 2 million copies, So, so it's not that it can't happen, but there are, you are selling hope. But then people became hip to the fact that no one that they knew ever got record deals anymore. And that's when it started, when people started, stopped, they couldn't find people to invest in making records anymore. So most of my friends got out of the production business. Ken, she read a PhD dissertation on this poor girl that did base the entire Burge course. So that's a very big book, all based on it. Hopefully she'll never learn it was a sham. Selling hope. I mean, that's what it is. And that's ultimately kind of what the music business was, but no longer is. I mean, George, there's online dating services, big promises too. Have I ever recorded an artist I felt was ahead of me musically? Aiden. I didn't feel that he was ahead of me musically. I knew he was. So, I was, this is the third day in a row. I keep getting these things. This is the third day in a row they've canceled school for my kids because of 1.5 inches of snow. It's unbelievable. Tomorrow, no school again. So this entire week has been no school. So there we go. I just got the thing again. Let's see. I followed Burgess' course technique very end and never to old perfect pitch. Didn't have my hopes high, but to see that I got no results was really frustrating. You know, and the thing about it is that that's been around since, I want to say, the 80s. That was in the back of guitar magazines, right? That was back of a lot of magazines. You'd find that in Downbeat magazine, all this stuff. Very smart marketing. Um, People really hate me because of the people that watch my video of why adults can't develop perfect pitch. That is, you know, and then they always say the same comments. I mean, I don't really read them. Um, I don't really read them that often, but it's, you know, but it's funny. The only video, perfect pitch video that are ahead of the videos that I've made on YouTube is the 1 hour and a half or 1.5 hours of playing individual notes, which is really hilarious. That which is really hilarious that people actually sit there and there's like 1 million views of one note being played over and over. Um, Anyways, um, perfect touchtone to years of dial-up modem use. There you go. Don't hate me because I'm honest. Right, exactly. There you go. Truth hits everybody. Oh man. Um, is perfect pitch a useful skill in a collaborative band? Absolutely. Perfect pitch is an incredibly useful skill to a certain point. Certain people really, rely on it for improvisation. Um, Gary Burton, when we talked about that a couple weeks ago, that I think that he ultimately retired because it was no fun for him. He got used to playing. He got used to playing by ear for so long, knowing exactly what chord. When he hears a D major over B flat, he knows to play the B flat Lydian augmented. He just hears it, and then all of a sudden he hears that sound. He's like, man, I know that's Lydian augmented, but I don't know which one it is. Who is the older person I know that still has perfect pitch? Well, probably, honestly, Iden, I know, still has perfect pitch, and he's 55. He'll be 56 like me. I'm trying to think of people. There's people that there's a guy that came to my masterclass last summer. Paul, great guy. I've not seen Paul on here or heard from him. I need to write to him, make sure he's doing okay. But Paul has perfect pitch, and he said that Paul's in his 50s, late 50s, and he said his perfect pitch was starting to become inaccurate. So Martin just asked, perfect pitch is not for life. No, it's not. It's not. People typically begin to lose it in their 50s. It goes off by a half step. And by the time that they're 60, it's usually gone. There's a great video, and we should put this on the forum. It's Abby Simon, who's a really famous classical pianist and piano teacher. There's a great video on YouTube where he talks about Richter losing his perfect pitch, and he talked about himself losing his perfect pitch. He's still teaching. He's 96 right now, or 97, and he taught at Curtis, and then he taught at Juilliard. Abby Simon did, but there's a great video on perfect pitch that he that he talks about. Could be worse. Pat Martino forgot how to play altogether. Exactly. So, there is that too. I don't know if we talked about this last night about if we talked about this, the Matheny interview that I watched yesterday, where a guy, it was from a couple years ago, maybe a year ago or so. It was a guy on in USA Today, I want to say, that was that was um, that I want to say it was USA Today. I'm pretty sure it was USA Today that showed a video of Matheny on YouTube and was asking him about what he thought about it. And I talked to my friend Pat about this last night. I sent him the video. I should post it. And it's fascinating because Pat talks about how he hates YouTube, and he said, back in the 80s, you play a gig in Germany and you think, oh man, that was a terrible gig. And then all of a sudden, 30 years later, that gig pops up on YouTube that you thought was a horrible gig. And he said that there's a lot of jazz musicians that are really, don't want to try out new material. And there's a lot of comedians that don't want to try out new material. He talked about people like, he said there's a couple of piano players that, there's a couple of piano players that it really affects their playing. And I think he was talking about Keith Jarrett. But, Pat talked about how he asked people not to record. And, but there's not really anything you can do. I mean, he said that people take out their phones and record anyways, even after they ask them not to do it. I don't. I didn't notice anyone doing it when I went to see him. So is Guthrie the same? He doesn't like people recording. Let's see here. You can let youngsters listen to your work. Their reaction will help you with the frequencies we can't hear. Trust me, they'll tell you if it's off. High and low pass are your friends. Matheny used to use his audience. He used to try out new material all the time. But now that you play something and it's out there. Now I don't agree with any of this. I think you adapt with the times. So that being said, I never had my picture taken with any bands ever. That's why if you look it up that I'm a producer. There's almost no pictures of me with any band that I've ever worked with. So, because I refuse to let people take my picture with them. But, there's other people that don't mind being recorded. So it's really fascinating. It's a gig, not a recording. Well, it is a gig, but nowadays it is a recording too. So you have to kind of be ready for anything. You just got to adapt with the times. That's it. Look, if I can adapt, and I'm 55, nearly 56, these guys can adapt, right? I mean, come on. I think it's something about improvising, and Pat, he's a perfectionist. That's and a lot of these guys are. Jarrett, all these guys are perfectionists. They don't get to be that good without being perfectionists. But I can't imagine Oscar Peterson or Joe Pass complaining about a recording of themselves. I just don't. They're just not. Anytime I saw Oscar, he was Oscar. Watch any interview with him. He had his own TV show where he'd play. Oscar Peterson. He seems like the kind of person that wouldn't care at all for if he was being recorded. Michael says, I think perfect pitch is too closely connected to genius. There are many parameters involved with creating stuff, and one needs to be happy with what one has. Develop great relative pitch and go for it. Nathan, I would rather have recordings of everything, good and bad. I agree. George, Zappa cut everything. There's a whole vault of stuff. Right. And that's the thing. And I think that Pat should really embrace it. But hey, that's only my opinion. And I really think that some of his best work was captured, and he's lucky it was captured. Tom says he prefers Max Martin Beatles style melodies are long, unmemorable melodies and virtuosism. Is that a word? I don't know. And more important, being creative and having good taste than having perfect pitch. Agreed with that. I don't agree with the first part completely. Take Max Martin out of there and I'll agree with it more, even though I love Max Martin. He's a talented guy, but come on. Don't put Max Martin and the Beatles in the same sentence. He'd probably tell you the same thing. Virtuosity, thank you. I mean, somebody's going to videotape gigs, they are. That's just going to happen, period. So just embrace it and get over it. Play better every night, Equestrian, I did not see that. Lyle's best recording was captured unbeknownst to him. Yeah, it's really, this is a big debate here, honestly. This is kind of the the debate of, I think this is kind of a dividing line between old school and new school. And I think that people, I really think it's ultimately hurts jazz musicians. Let's see. Peterson says, it's annoying though, even for the audience member, I want to have a joint experience with other people, not one dude in the crowd without a camera. Yeah, I mean, look, when I went to see Pat play and they asked not to record, I didn't take my camera out and record. Victor Wooten, I saw Victor and Dennis Chambers play with Bob Franceschini 3 weeks before, and they didn't say a word about it. Victor doesn't care. He didn't care at all. So, that's why they have things taken down from YouTube. I mean, look, if Pat didn't want anything up there, he could have it taken down. Look at Led Zeppelin. All their stuff gets taken down. Let's see. Shaker Maker says, ironically, Metallica has gone to the complete side of the other side of the spectrum, has gone all in with digital media formats, including fan submissions. Yeah, there you go. The guys from Tool are not fond of video recordings. Where were we talking about this? Tool and Radiohead last night, right? I got interviewed. I taught a class yesterday, and they asked. I taught a class at a college up in Nashville, just over Skype, and they asked about. We're talking about branding. This was the topic of the class. It's a music business class. And we talked about Radiohead's brand, and I compared it to Tool's brand, that are, in a way, critic-proof, or at least they're fan-proof, meaning that their fans will like anything they do. Pretty much, they're kind of like Apple in that way. Whereas Metallica really screwed up on the, when the whole Napster thing happened, they were worried about making their money, even though they had hundreds of millions of dollars. Yeah, I understand. I mean, look, nobody wants to. I didn't like it when I made $325 off having 37 million plays on the internet. When I had a number one song, 37 million plays, paid $325. Now, was that does that sound fair? I don't think so. Um, so Lars wanted to buy more artworks, George. Josh homie used to call people out showing at Queens of the Stone Age shows recording on their phones. Maybe Pat doesn't know he can do that yet. Where Metallica screwed up. Yes, they screwed they hurt their brand. And but I think that Tool and Radiohead have very similar brands. I realized that while I was telling this class that Tom, virtuosism is an English word and it's correct. I actually did not say that it wasn't correct. I didn't know if that was a correct word or not. Virtuosism. What Lars did with Napster makes him a buffoon nowadays, and he knows it too. Of course he does know it. And they wish that they had never said anything, you know. Virtuosity seems correcter. That's good. Radiohead established themselves as a progressive band. Tool, not so much. My point was more that Tool, they're very similar in the way that they stayed out of the public eye in between records. There's never any hint of scandals around them. They're not, they don't get out there, and when do you ever hear any articles about Maynard? You hardly know anything about these people. Tom York, you hardly hear anything. That is why it's they're not anything like Metallica. Lars, don't get between Lars and a camera. You'll get hurt. Anyway, so that's and then I made the point that I always saw an interesting parallel between Kurt Cobain and Eminem. Not just because they had blonde hair, but they were both critic-proof. And I'm a massive Nirvana fan. If you think about the parallels between the two of them, and it's really interesting that they never knew each other. Kurt Cobain was incredibly outspoken, just unbelievably gifted with melody and lyrics. And does Maynard really have a new autobiography out? That's hilarious. Well, you see, it's on his own. If he does, it's his own. It's his own making. That Maynard makes wine, right? In between records, you hardly know what they're gonna do. When I met Josh Freese the first time, who played in the Perfect Circle, I asked him when the Perfect Circle was going to do their next record. And this was in 2005, and he said, "We're never going to make another record again." He said that Tool is going to a Maynard Ferguson. Pretty good, Richard. I like that. But you never hear anything about Radiohead in between records. Nothing. They just stay out of the public eye. And the same with Tool. And honestly, people like Adele stay out of the public eye. That's why Adele, when her records come out, years go by without hearing anything about her. Let me get back to Eminem and Kurt Cobain. Okay, two incredibly outspoken people that were really amazingly gifted at what they did. Eminem, was a great improviser, rapper, incredible lyricist and writer. And Kurt Cobain, same thing. They were super opinionated and they were critic-proof. No one, there was really not a bad review of Nirvana ever. Hardly ever a bad review. And the same thing with Eminem. When Eminem came out, they were very similar kind of people, super outspoken about things. They were brilliant. They were both brilliant. Blonde-haired, very interesting. I think that I think that that there's a I think there's an interesting parallel between them. What about the song Polly? What about the song Polly? Amazing song. I love Polly. It's one of my favorite songs. Someone had to be Metallica, and Kurt was a really cool person. He was very humble, soft-spoken. People in my circles have genuinely missed him since he left Aberdeen long ago. Because Eminem's early albums were good, his new albums not so much. Yes. Rolling Stone gave Nevermind 3 stars when it came out, and they revised that. They really felt bad about that. So, I mean, that was a big screw up there. Joe, were you trying to type Tom Morello and you missed a couple of the letters there? I hope Sting leaves to be 100. So I went back and I've been listening to The Police a lot lately. And there is nothing like Sting's hit songs are so sophisticated. There are so many parts to them. And I just marvel at songs like Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic. How sophisticated the melodies are. I mean, it's really, really amazing. But this whole thing about Andy Summers, I love Andy Summers, but Sting came up with all those guitar parts for the most part. And there's just, everything about the Police. If you look at the kick patterns on Wrapped Around Your Finger, when they lead into the second chorus, Stuart Copeland plays dun 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 dun. I'll be it. Yet he doesn't do it in the first chorus like that. Everything about these songs is really there's so much improvisation in the Police that is every bass lick that Sting does on Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic is different. Spirits in the Material World, completely different. Nothing like that. Who would do a song like that? Nobody would. No one would do a song like that. That's Sting played guitar in Fortress Around Your Heart, and it's very intricate, all those songs on there. Sting struggles a lot for melodies, he says, are most difficult thing for him. The thing that I really liked about Sting is that he said that there was no point in putting out a record until they had the flagship songs on it. And Sting had an incredible sense of what a hit song was. He knew when he would write them he knew that they were hits. And he was able to write hits on every single record. And he was able to write hits in many different styles. Man, I mean, it's really remarkable. Does anyone know if Sting writes music or lyrics first? Ray asks. If I had to say, I would say 98% of every artist, every writer writes music first. I remember reading that the only song that the Beatles wrote that the lyrics were written first was Across the Universe. Now, one of the exceptions is Elton John. And that time I told the story about meeting Elton John and staying in the studio. Well, when I met Elton John, Bernie Taupin was right there. And and my assistant, Ken, assisted on a session of Elton's when Bernie Taupin was at Tree Sound here, because Elton has lived in Atlanta for years. And Bernie would finish a set of lyrics, Elton would go to the piano, and he would simply improvise, and they would record it. And he'd look at the lyrics, and he would improvise he'd improvise melodies on the piano parts, and sing the lyrics and create the melodies that way. Then he'd go back in the control room, listen, and then he'd piece together the song. And he told us that night, we hung out for an hour or so with him, and he said that they would write and record a record in 2 weeks, twice a year. So he would improvise at the same time, looking at the lyrics. So Bernie would finish the lyrics, hand them to Elton. Elton would put them on the piano. He'd sit there, they'd start recording, and Elton would improvise and sing, make up melodies based on the lyrics he saw there, which is pretty incredible. And my assistant Ken assisted on one of the sessions. He said they just put up a DAT tape when he was doing it, and Elton would just keep trying new things out. It was unbelievable. And meeting them was fascinating because, I mean, you think about the songs that they, I think about a song like Rocket Man. Rocket Man. I mean, with the Rocket Man, it's I think it's going to be a long, long time. I mean, I can't imagine jamming those melodies out there. It's really fascinating to think that he would. How was Elton dressed that day? Totally normal. He was super nice too. Joe, Sting. Songwriting is the hardest intellectual pursuit in my life. It's the hardest thing, the most painful thing, the thing I avoid like the plague. I'd rather be on tour. I'd rather be a sportsman. You have a Alan has a theory. Rick, what say you? Perfect pitch might interfere with the beholder's musical experience, meaning they might miss the emotional experience for a cognitive experience. Well, yes, but except for the fact that every famous composer just about had perfect pitch. So I don't think that it affected Beethoven or Mozart's or Bach's experience, or Keith Jarrett's or Oscar Peterson, or any of these people that we can mention that have perfect pitch. It certainly doesn't affect Aiden's experience. It doesn't affect Dylan's experience with music. He just listens to music. He doesn't think about it. I mean, honestly, he doesn't. I played him. So I'm working on it. So I did the drum mixing video today, but I actually started making my Danny Elfman video. And I started out with the Batman theme, and not knowing if I could play the Batman theme, I decided to just score it from scratch. But there's about 30 parts in the first, 20 bars that only use 5 notes. B, C sharp, D, G, and F sharp. Okay, that is the opening until it goes to this big C sharp major chord. Those are the only notes in the entire introduction. It's a lot of work, Tom. Trust me. So I take the song, I import it into Pro Tools, right? And then I sit there and I import all the things: flutes, clarinets, oboe, English horn, French horns, trumpets, trombones, tuba, strings, celeste, all this stuff, right? 30 something tracks. Every separate part has to be done on a different MIDI track too. So anyways, it's so I play along with it, all the parts, so that's right in time with the original. But it is really time consuming, and but it occurred to me that, well, then I had Dylan come down today, and I said, Dylan, are there any notes? You don't hear any notes that are outside these 4 notes, right? Out of B, C sharp, D, and G, and F sharp. He listens to it, and he goes, well, right there. And then he goes, I said, what's that? He goes, C sharp major. And I started laughing that that's the first time that any other notes are introduced in the music. But he does so much. The orchestration is so good that I almost wanted to do the video just of that. I see you on there, John. Finally, I can ignore you. It's interesting. I almost wanted to do my video, do a Danny Elfman video where what to do with 5 notes. I mean, it's literally the entire intro to Beethoven is only to Batman is only those 5 notes. Okay, some more Kurt Cobain stuff on here. Kurt was very intrigued by a band called Attica. They were seniors in the hometown music scene, very informative. He was quoted saying Gary Kohler was his favorite guitar player. So I'm going to have Jim Vincent, who was Kurt's guitar tech. I'm going to try and get in touch with him and see if I can interview him, because he was Kurt's guitar tech for a couple of years. And it would be really fascinating, because it was fascinating talking to him. He was actually there in Italy when Kurt tried to commit suicide the first time. Okay, so Dundo just asked, how's the forum going? The forum is going great. I want to say that there's well over 100 posts on it. I'm going to post, I don't know if you guys noticed, but the Aaron changed the changed it to this now. This is the new address. Maybe it doesn't have that slash there at the very end. Maybe it's just this. I'm not sure. I think it's this. Maybe it's that. Try that. See if that works. That should take you right to the forum. So I want everybody should put their profile picture on there. It's really cool. Put your YouTube handle on there. But it actually has. I put up some things, like some links to videos on there that you should watch. I mean, there were so many posts on there. I need to get. I need to get over there and start answering some of them. No fights yet, but you'll try, George. Yes, it goes to the forum. Anyways, people can put up their own music. Jari, I saw your post. You figured out how avatars work. I'm not sure about the avatar, how that worked. But I put up my own profile picture, but it didn't come up. I need to ask Erin about that. But Erin, used the live chat. She put the live chat in there, which is great. He also told me that I can stream in there as well, that he's going to set that up. Ray says, Start the Rebellion says, check my post revisiting. Why do people hate jazz? I need replies. Nathan, Rick, I didn't see your account and your name in the forums. I put it up there right before I came on. So if you go there, so I'm on there as an administrator as well. I answered one question as an administrator. Then I went and I signed in as myself. And then Rhett is an administrator and Aaron is an administrator on there. So, Stefan, you started the artist ahead of your time. I posted in that thread. And then I posted in the Peter Smart isms is for great sayings, and John, you can put some of Mom's sayings in there. I put a couple of them in there, but I'm gonna. I'm omnipresent, Martin. That's funny. Yeah, so Rhett signed up today, and Nathan, you release a Batman cover. So people can put things, if you want to put links to your own music in there, go ahead. That'd be great. Somebody should start a thing for original music where I know you can post some things in there. For example, if you want to post your setup with your gear or your guitar amps, whatever, your pedal boards, if you're guitar players, your keyboard setups, things like that. But we should probably do things like I want to know about, somebody should probably do something on software, for example, notation software. David, how about your latest credit roll-up sound? Great. But how about the ambient section? Yeah, so if you guys want to put things in there and get people's opinion on stuff, is there a section for guitar and not piano? No, there will be a section for piano, guitar, for any instruments, for bass. We'll put all those in there. Aaron just started putting these things. Here's the link again, Liam. I think this is the link. Check me on this. Joe, see if this is right here. I think that's it. It's just forum.rickbeato.com, which is really cool. Oboe, yeah, so Dylan's first oboe lesson is on Saturday. But the fact that we're moving away from UMG, if somebody wants to post something over there too, hey Hassan, what's up? We can have an orchestration part in there as well. How to choose an oboe. I know, really. So Muse score. You sent me a fugue box style a long time ago. Tom, you did? You know, people send me stuff, and I get about 100 emails a day. So don't take it personally if I don't answer. Just try again. The WD-40 is supposed to make you play faster, my brother says. The forum idea is a treasure. I think it was Brett was the one that came up with. Somebody came up with it. Somebody on here said, "Let's have a forum." Joe, was it you? I forget who said it, but what I want it to be is I want it to be the biggest music forum on the web. Eventually, we need to just bypass Reddit and all that stuff, and this can be the place that is is the music forum. What I'd like to do is I'd like to adjourn over there actually, maybe right now, and get on to the go on the stream, have people sign up. There's a chat window there. Brett, it was not your original idea, but you jumped on it. Well, that's what made me think about it. Brett, I tried to. You had a couple little posts. I tried to reply to them, but I still don't know how the thing works that way. So, but I saw you on there. I looked, and I tried to comment on a couple of things that you wrote, but I'm a little slow when it comes to these forums, so I'm kind of learning. MuseScore is the best open source orchestration software. MuseScore looks really good. I have MuseScore and use it for certain things, but we have Finale and Sibelius and Guitar Pro and MuseScore, and I have one other one on my PC that I can't remember the name of. But yeah, feel free to post pictures of your gear, things like that too. And any gear questions. I'm going to get my friend Dave Honorato, who knows more about guitar gear than anyone. I want to get a couple of gear experts on there that you can ask questions to. Because my buddy Dave, I'm going to have Dave in here. He's the guy that does all my guitar setups, but he's such an incredible guitar player. Man, you got to hear him play. He's got unbelievable feel. Anyways, all right. Well, listen, I'm going to adjourn from here. I'm going to go over to the forum, and I'm going to get on the chat if people want to ask questions or anything. So I'm going to stop the streaming here. I'm going to play some music out here. Let's see here.